Hello, everybody, and welcome to Mad Fans with a Podcast. We are back, sort of.
From outer space, or something like
walked
that.
in to find you here.
With that said, look upon your face.
Oh my!
I think if we use any more, we're gonna have to pay royalties for that.
I think we will. We'll have to stop.
Yeah.
Yes. So, wow, long overdue.
Yeah, it's been about 2 years, give or take.
At least 3.
Probably 3. Most definitely.
It was 2015 for the episode with John.
Wow, holy moly! So it has been almost 3 years. My goodness.
2.5. Well, not even 2 and 4 months.
Okay, so if you want to get into like pedantics, okay,
Yes.
let's be super specific. Yeah,
I'm going to be very shallow and pedantic, thank you.
Ugh. So we have a lot to catch up on, don't we?
We do.
Yes.
We've missed, let's see, 4 Christmas specials and 2 regular seasons of Doctor Who. We do have a lot to catch up on. So we might as well start at the beginning. Peter Capaldi, 12th Doctor. Just said goodbye to him a couple days ago, but we're going to look back on Season 9, Season 10, and the 3 Christmas specials we missed in between.
Excellent.
So let's hit to it. Season 9. What do you guys think? Tell me about Season 9. What'd you like about Season 9?
Oh, Season 9.
Let's see.
That was the one with a Ashildr, yes?
Yes. So to give our listeners a lovely refresher on Season 9, Season 9 saw things like The Last Christmas, which was the one with Clara and the face hugger things, and the Santa Claus.
Oh, yeah.
Magician's Apprentice and The Witch's Familiar, the 2-part episodes with Missy. We have Under the Lake and Before the Flood, The Girl Who Died and the Woman Who Lived with Ashildr, The Zygon Invasion and the Zygon Inversion, Sleep No More, which is, I'm going to pretend that episode doesn't exist specifically, Face the Raven, which saw the return of Ashildr, Heaven Sent and Hell Bent, which is another 2-part episode, and The Husbands of River Song.
Oh, that's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, Season 9 was the series of 2-part episodes. So what did you guys think?
I enjoyed Series 9 quite a bit because of all of the 2-part episodes.
The Magician's Apprentice and The Witch's Familiar, the Dalek episodes with Davros and Missy and Skaro, that was incredible for me to watch.
Absolutely.
And seeing Davros open his actual eyes was pretty freaking cool.
Yes.
I agree. It was pretty stinking cool. I mean, for years we've seen this character and just assumed that like this little blue orb on his forehead was his eyeballs, but it's good to see that after thousands of years his eyes are like fresh picked apples or something. Looks like they haven't even aged.
No, they're not even red from being closed that long either.
No. I mean, I wake up in the morning, my eyes are red. This guy has his eyes closed for thousands of years. Nope. Like he's been using eye drops or something secretly on the side. You think Skaro has eye drops? I think Skaro would have eye drops.
What did you guys think of Clara in the Dalek shell?
That was interesting.
Kind of hearkening back to her first episode.
Yes.
Oh yeah. As it has been made known in many of our podcasts, I am not a huge fan of Clara. I don't think she's a very well-written character. I don't think she was very well-rounded when she was first introduced, but I happen to enjoy her this last season in Season 9. I thought that after losing Danny, she really just let everything go. Like she just finally said, screw it, let's just do whatever makes me happy. And that's when we kind of found out that Clara might be bisexual with Jane Austen. And I'm all over that.
I wasn't a big fan of Clara either.
No, wasn't my cup of tea either.
She had a lot of potential, but my favorite episode of hers was when she died.
Yes, I did enjoy that quite a bit. Although, you know what? Clara is like a dirty penny. She just keeps showing up.
She does, because she even showed up in this last episode.
Yes. We will get to that. But for as much as I hate fan service for fan service's sake, I was not a huge fan of, in fact, I actually almost stopped the episode once I realized that it was Clara Because for a moment I had a moment of doubt where I'm like, no, they couldn't have brought her back. They might have brought back Alex Kingston to be River Song one last time, but they wouldn't bring back Jenna Coleman. They brought back Jenna Coleman.
That's
Not
only
happy.
because of that unfinished business crap.
Unfinished Moffat.
They wanted to bring back his memories.
So I honestly feel like bringing back Clara was a little bit of autofellatio on Stephen Moffat's part, just as a last final goodbye. Oh my goodness! See how quickly we got derailed from that situation. Damn you, Moffat!
Always.
So let's move on to Under the Lake and Before the Flood.
You know, I thought those were pretty decently written episodes. I liked the idea of the ghost kind of thing, using the, I guess, echo, the, I don't know, the, what was it, radio signal echoes to pretend to be ghosts, or using corpses as radio signal boosters. Kind of absurd.
Yeah.
It's a hologram created to exploit a time travel paradox and convey vital information between past and future.
Yeah, that's what they tell you. And that's what
what's the paradox called? The bootstrap paradox.
Thank you, Beethoven.
I thought they were pretty good episodes. I wouldn't say they were super memorable, but I mean, for what they were definitely watchable.
I do enjoy the fact that they seem to have brought more diversity into these last 2 seasons of Doctor Who, particularly with the deaf crew member. I thought that was very cool and very interesting.
Yes.
So, moving on to, let's see here what we got next. Let's see, the girl who died and the woman who lived.
A Shielder.
Viking episodes. What do you guys think? I mean, Shielder, kind of unusual character, turning into a character called Me.
I liked a Shielder as a whole. I think she made a very good villain because she was pretty much just all about herself and was just very resentful of the Doctor for making her lose all of her family.
I think her character easily is a mirror on us and kind of our need for immortality and our wants for immortality. Because, you know, obviously, I mean, people want to be immortal and live forever, but really a Shielder's there to explain to us, you know, obviously in a very subtle way, that the human memory only has a certain lifespan. And her going through all of those diaries and writing down her daily life, because she's lived so long, her memory can't hold it in anymore. She can't retain anything longer than, you know, just the present. And I think that's an incredibly interesting way to go about handling an immortal situation. And specifically showing the her having a child and experiencing the plague and losing that child to the plague, and having to lose her family, even though, you know, it was her child.
Right. I did find it interesting that specifically in The Girl Who Died, this is where the Doctor remembers where he got his face.
Absolutely. And we anticipated that happening. Just, you know, last time we recorded, we were speculating, you know, are they going to bring up the fact that his face looks the same as the guy in the Pompeii episode? Are they going to tie in somehow Torchwood? And surprisingly, they went with the Pompeii episode, and I think that was a very good choice, because I think if they tried to tie in Torchwood, it probably wouldn't have worked quite as well.
I agree. I don't think it would have worked with Torchwood.
So, moving on to a lovely pair of Zygon episodes, the Zygon Invasion and the Zygon Inversion.
I loved those episodes.
Yes.
I did as well, but I didn't remember as much of the Zygons as I would have liked whenever I watched them, so I need to go back and watch them again.
This was very much like, it felt like a Tom Baker episode. Like, it was truly channeling Tom Baker's Doctor.
It really was, and the speech that the Doctor gives at the end of the Zygon Inversion, that, you know, you need to sit together and do what everyone does eventually and talk.
Mm-hmm.
Thought that was very powerful. I still am not a fan of Osgood.
I like her.
I love her. I think she's a great addition to Unit, although I have the distinct premonition that she is to be used selectively not all the time, but selectively. And I think they've kept it pretty basic so far, and I think they need to keep it that way. Otherwise, Osgood will have a tendency to turn into another Clara or another Rose Tyler, where she is just
most important girl in the world.
Uh-huh. And I feel like the use of the Osgood, I'm not sure what it's referred to, but the Osgood something or other, where they're talking about there's always two Osgoods out there in the world at the time. One is a Zygon, the other is not, presumably, and neither one knows which one is which, and they're there to keep the peace.
Right.
I don't know. I think it's a brilliant episode. And you know what? I was actually thinking about that speech at the end the other day, where he's talking to Zygella and Kate Stewart, and he says to Nigella, "You've made one fatal mistake, and that is, I know that face, and I know what that face is saying." And he's talking about Clara's face, and it dawned on me what he was referring to, and that's the fact that he couldn't get inside of her head, but he's been around Clara for so long, he knows what she's thinking, even if she's not saying it out loud.
Yes.
And the fact that Zygella chose Clara's form, it doesn't matter what she's thinking. The Doctor knows what she's thinking because she's using Clara's facial expressions, and he can read that.
That's a very good point.
Now, what about the standalone episode Sleep No More?
Oh, good Lord.
I don't actually remember this one.
So it was I don't want to say it's a mockumentary, but it's like a paranormal activity type episode where it wasn't filmed with actual cameras, but rather like handheld type cameras or
found footage, I believe is the term.
Yeah, found footage. There we go. That's what I'm trying to reach for. So it was a found footage episode about this space, some sort of space capsule where there are sleep experiments going on.
The Morpheus pod.
Yes, the Morpheus pod, and of course that classic Sandman bit there where dun 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 dun. Love that.
Love that.
I thought it had a lot of potential, but I felt like it was a very cheap ending.
I agree. If you're watching this, you're already infected and blah.
I thought that they had so much more to give from that episode, but I hate those episodes where the Doctor just runs away. It's like,
I'm still fighting to remember this. That's how much of a...
It's not a memorable episode.
That's one of the unfortunate things about this season was that it wasn't memorable, and it wasn't a huge standalone episode. It was just bleh. And I think that they were trying to compensate for the fact that they had done so many two-part episodes that they wanted to do a one-off, and they ended up doing 2 one-off episodes, Sleep No More, and the next episode, Face the Raven, where Shielder returns as me, and we see Clara's demise. So what do you guys think about Face the Raven? We see, for the first time, Capaldi's lovely red velvet coat. We see the mysterious, Trap Street. That's what it is. They explore Trap Streets. They explore all the aliens that seem to be living in Asylum in the Trap Street.
I liked that idea.
I thought it was pretty nifty.
It was very interesting, and I enjoyed the start of Clara's demise, because as I think you all did, because I don't think any of us are really huge fans of Clara.
I found it to be very emotional, and I did, feel sad that she died, because I'm not completely, inhuman. But as far as out goes one character and in goes another, I was very happy because the most important girl in the universe thing was getting pretty freaking old.
That's something I have brought up at length in some of our previous podcasts. That is my least favorite trope of Doctor Who, because you had Rose Tyler, you had Martha Jones with the Osterhagen key, you had the Dr. Donna, and it just got so tiring.
I think we're missing out on Amy Pond, because several points during that run, Amy Pond was referred to as one of the most important girls in the... And in fact, she was treated that way multiple times.
I will say that even though I despise that trope, I found Amy to be my favorite female companion.
Mine was Donna.
I don't know. I had the pleasure, not to rub this in anybody's face at all, but I got the pleasure of meeting Catherine Tate this past year, and I would say Donna still remains one of my favorite companions because I feel like she kept the Doctor in check, and she kept the Doctor real, and she kept him grounded. She kept him in Earth world terms, not in Gallifreyan mumbo jumbo. And I think easily right after Donna or right next to Donna is Bill Potts, who is the companion for season 10.
That is true.
But
I did like Bill a lot.
We will definitely get there. So, returning back to the Face the Raven episode, what did you guys think of the Raven? I'm not sure what they called it. I don't remember what they called it. Chronolock. There we go. So what do you guys think of the Chronolock?
I thought it was very interesting, especially with the fact that you could take it from someone else.
I think that made a very interesting choice because honestly, with Clara being so reckless and so just unrelentlessly doing things to try to do what the Doctor would do, she ended up realizing that the Doctor puts his own life at risk so many times, and that I think this was the first time she realized that she's human and she can't do what the Doctor does, and she can't anticipate the way that he does, because obviously he's going to die, sure,
right,
but he can still live in the end.
She put her faith in Ashildr, or in May or me at this point, thinking that she was going to remove the chronolock. But May or me doesn't care. She's so jaded from having everything taken away from her that she's going to do what she can she's going to do everything that she can to, get back at the Doctor.
I think she had a brief bout of humanity when she realized that Clara took the chronolock away, but it wasn't the fact that she was afraid of Clara or she was afraid of the mistake that she had made. She was afraid of the Doctor.
Yes.
And she knew what she had gotten herself into because the Doctor is one of the most terrifying entities in the entire universe. Sure, you don't want to piss off the Daleks or the Cybermen, but Doctor's ultimate supremo no-no, don't even think about it.
Right, because even though the other entities that you mentioned, the Daleks, Cybermen, and whatnot, are terrifying, there's no one else that can beat them.
Time and time again, the Doctor's always been there. So, that being said, moving on to the 2-part season finale of season 9, we have Heaven Sent and Hell Bent.
Oh, Heaven Sent is my favorite episode.
Yeah, that is by far one of my favorite episodes of the entire new Who. I thought it was done very well. It was a single Doctor story, and it was acted incredibly by Peter Capaldi.
It really was. I had no idea what was going on until the very end, and usually I can guess some portion of it. I pride myself in being able to guess any small thing that's going to happen. Mm-hmm. This one I had no idea until the very end.
This, I tell you what, that mountain of skulls is what really got me in the end.
Yes.
I'm looking at this mountain of skulls going, what the heck is going on? And why are all of these things, like when he dives into the pool and then he comes out of it and then he goes to the fireplace and there's already a dry red velvet jacket waiting for him and all of his other clothes, and he puts up the wet clothes next to the fire and he goes on, and then you see him die, and then he goes through all of those motions again, and then you realize, oh, wait, that was his.
Yes.
But he just got reborn.
It goes kind of back to that bootstrap paradox, where if he hadn't shown up there and put his wet clothes there, then who would have put them there?
Absolutely. And even using that, the confession disc, because Missy had the confession disc.
Yes.
And even like showing that in the beginning of the season, because I think I remember that confession disc being shown at the beginning of the season somewhere. We see the confession disc long before it's actually introduced. And
that is very true.
using that as kind of like a weird hanging over our heads, what the hell is Missy doing with the confession disc, whatever, and then finally seeing what it is at the end of the season and confirming what it is. I think that's a really cool technique. Introducing Rassilon again and introducing the War Council of Time Lords once again, I think it's a great way to circle back in on itself and keep the modern version of the Time Lords very up to date. I love their wartime outfits with the giant collars that are somewhat like cardboard cutouts, but a lot
Yes.
better looking.
I love the outfits so much.
They're not paper mache anymore. They're legit like steel cut aluminum.
They're not going to blow down in a strong or even mild wind.
And yes,
Exactly.
the confession dial appeared, I believe, first in The Witch's Familiar, which was the first episode of Series 9.
Yes.
It's actually the second episode, but close. I'm looking at an episode list here to remind myself.
Oh, sorry, Magician's Apprentice. I got my episodes switched.
I have a mom's brain now, so I can't commit to remembering things.
So, anything else that we should talk about Heaven Sent and Hell Bent before we move on to the Christmas episode of this season? I do have a small note written off to the side here on my notes. Apparently, I have mommy brain too. Sonic sunglasses. What does that mean to anybody?
Oh man, I have such torn feelings about this.
Tell me, what are I know that Scott has already expressed his many concerns to me in private, but Scott and Michelle, let us hear what you guys think about the Sonic sunglasses.
I'll go first because mine's probably going to be a lot shorter than Scott's is, and a lot less passionate, I'm sure. So I like the idea that he is trying to do his own thing, but I think when you're trying to be cool, you are significantly less cool. And I need a doctor that can, hold that sonic screwdriver in his hand and command rather than, putting it on and going hands-free. It just felt weird to me.
I'll be honest, I hated them at first. And I hated them up until more through series 10.
Was it the tank?
I don't know.
I think it was the tank.
It had to be the tank.
I don't know. The more they appeared, the more I started to like them. I thought they were really kitschy and gimmicky at first, but they ended up coming in handy for the Doctor, and they were pretty humorous in the Christmas episode this year. So I appreciate them a little bit more than I did. Still not a huge fan, but not as bad as I thought they were.
I absolutely loved the Sonic sunglasses so much. I think they were freaking hilarious, and I think they fit in with Peter Capaldi's image of the Doctor. I thought they were very punk rock-esque, and I thought they kept very, very well into his image. Obviously, throughout the years, the Doctor's tools have often reflected the Doctor using them, and I think the Sonic sunglasses very much reflected Peter Capaldi's Doctor. I don't think they will be translated into Jodie Whittaker's Doctor. If they do, they will be. I think they will be, but I think they will be phased out, much like any other Sonic device.
I hope they go out the way of the Fifth Doctor's Sonic screwdriver,
where they just blow up.
Yeah, just explode them and be done with them.
I will say I absolutely loved the design of his sonic screwdriver, like the actual sonic screwdriver.
Absolutely.
The giant lit tip. Whoever wants to take that as they can.
Yeah, I loved
so
the new
beautiful.
Sonic.
Yeah, I thought it was a gorgeous design, and I think it was a great way to usher in a new era of Doctor Who, or a new series of Doctor Who, rather. So
I think that might be part of the reason why I didn't like the Sonic sunglasses so much, is because he had a fantastic screwdriver. Just use your screwdriver, man. And one more thing about the sunglasses that I just remembered. There was a part that I did like, but it was with the most recent episode, which we will get to when we talk about the most recent episode.
Absolutely. All right, so moving on to a Christmas episode, The Husbands of River Song.
I cried a lot.
I thought, you know what? I will be honest with you guys and with our listening audience because, hey, you know what? This is between friends. I was not a fan of River Song up until this episode. I did not like her as a character. I thought she was kind of a little bit overly sexified. I thought
Mm-hmm.
she was one of those Deus ex machina type characters where it's like, okay, literally anything she does, she can't die. It doesn't matter. I didn't. What I saw from her was very, very artificial
I could
until
see that.
this episode. And when she looked over at the doctor when they were standing in the restaurant, and you could see the tears in her eyes
I'm
as
getting
she
goosebumps.
realized, yeah, well, when she realized that she was so naive and so misguided, and she was so foolish for thinking that the doctor couldn't be this guy and that the doctor could do anything, and how could she ever let herself forget that? I thought that was the moment that I fell in love with the song.
I've always loved River. I will just hands down. I've always loved her because she's always had that mysteriousness of having that backwards timeline, or whether his is backwards, I don't know.
Exactly. How they're kind of in inverse timelines where the older the doctor gets, the younger her son gets, and vice versa.
Yeah.
But this was kind of parallel with his timeline.
I
Because
will say
really,
that the scene where she realized that the doctor was standing next to her is probably one of the best scenes in all of Doctor Who.
I
Yeah.
agree.
In terms of emotion and intensity, I thought it was fantastically acted, very well directed and written, and props to Stephen Moffat and Alex Kingston, Peter Capaldi for that.
Which, might I add, that saying props to Stephen Moffat is not something that I think we've ever said in any of our podcasts. So this may be a first for us
It is
to
definitely a
actually
first because we have
give.
harped on him a lot.
Yes, exactly. So there's one thing that I would like to point out and talk to you guys or with you guys about from the Husbands of River Song, and that is we finally have an origin story for River Song's sonic screwdriver. What do you guys think?
I thought that was fantastic.
I mean, it has a red setting.
It does.
I thought that was a very touching moment.
It really was. I'm having trouble putting words to this. I love this episode so much.
You know, I think one of the right next to that scene in the restaurant where they're the River Song finally realizes that that's the doctor standing next to her. I think easily the next best scene in Doctor Who comes at the end of this episode, where River Song is talking to the doctor about how she has to go die now, but the doctor says, no, we can stay a couple of nights here. We can stay, what, a night or a week or something like that. And
I just read about this actually. The span of a night on Beryllium is 24 years.
Mm-hmm.
I did not realize that. I must have missed it.
Yeah, they
I mean,
kind of glanced over it in the episode.
but I think that was still such a touching moment
Mhm.
there where she realizes that they have time to spend together and she has time to say a proper goodbye. I think that's absolutely wonderful and brilliant. So, moving on to what? Another Christmas episode?
Yeah, there
There's a
was
whole
no
year in
season
here.
there.
Wow.
Right.
look at
Oh,
that.
what a wait.
Yeah. So we are looking at the return of Dr. Mysterio, a very superhero-y type episode. I think all of us deep inside have been waiting for a superhero episode,
Yes.
or like Superman-esque episode, or some sort of cowled crusader type episode. But I think, I've heard a lot of really mixed things about this episode. I personally enjoyed it, even though I am not a Superman fan. I detest Superman, but I think this was very well done. This very well written.
I think it was too. I enjoyed it quite a bit, and I don't remember Nardole being in there. We talked a little bit about this before we started recording, but my brain does not put Nardole at a beginning of any timeline. So again, I'm reading the synopsis for each of these episodes just to remind myself, and it says, the Doctor and Nardole find the alien ship. I don't recall this. I think I've completely blocked Nardole out of my memories.
Nardole was introduced in the Husbands of River Song But really, his point was that he was supposed to be that grounding character. Those of you who are familiar with Red Dwarf, I guess Nardole would be somewhat of the Holly of the ship. He is the one that explains what's going on, and the one that kind of helps us, the simpletons, catch up to the storyline. I think that
He
kind
did
of
the opposite for me. He
really.
confused the heck out of me.
See, I did not like Nardole at first. Kind of like the Sonic screwdriver or Sonic sunglasses. It took a while, but I did really warm up to Nardole, and I'm sad to see him go. But yeah, Nardole, I forgot that he was in The Return of Dr. Mysterio. But honestly, it wasn't my favorite of the episodes. I'm not a. I do like some superheroes, but it's not a big interest for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I don't think it was super memorable, but it was all we had for a year and a half. So
Right.
I particularly find the fact that there was a squeaky toy named Mr. Huffle. I thought that he was kind of a hilarious addition, although stupid and never used again. I don't know, he reminded me of like a squeaky, kind of like Nardole with hair.
Yeah.
but Nardole has hair.
It's invisible.
It's invisible hair.
So let's take a look at season 10. My goodness, we had some fun times in season 10, didn't we?
Oh
We
my.
did. The first episode was the pilot.
Yes,
That's just
literally.
what it's called.
So, the pilot, the introduction of our lovely lady lesbian, Bill Potts, the introduction of the Doctor as a professor, which is not the first time it has happened.
When was the last? I cannot remember.
So,
Eighth Doctor, was it not?
the seventh Doctor canonically was
Or
called
Seventh Doctor, my bad.
The fourth Doctor actually was a standing professor at Cambridge, and it was officially canonized that his position would always be vacant for the off chance that he would return.
That's cool.
And that was actually confirmed in Shada, which was technically the unfilmed episode, but in recent years they've actually this past year they have animated it.
Shada doesn't exist, you're lying.
Shut up. So, Michelle, you and I were talking about before we started recording about how we both enjoy Bill as being a gay character that is not a plot device.
She wasn't gay just because she's gay. She was gay because, well, she was gay just because she's gay. She wasn't gay to move a plot forward or to be funny or silly.
She was just gay.
Yeah, that's who she was. She liked girls.
Good old-fashioned gay. So we have the pilot, which features a very, actually, you know what, surprisingly touching alien-human love
relationship. Yeah, and we'll call it a relationship.
I was totally all over that, you know, and I personally am not a fan of Captain Jack. In fact, I think that he's a very cheap character, and he is what I despise in using gay characters in a story, and that is, you know, obviously using them to be a shock factor.
Yeah.
To be fair, Captain Jack was polysexual.
Well, I guess. Yes.
That was still, I mean, it's still the same point of.
Oh yeah, it was still a plot device.
Have shock factor, regardless of how many species he, likes to diddle. Okay.
Absolutely. Well, I think one of the best moments of the pilot has to be when the Doctor and Bill go to the Dalek compound, and there are the Cleopatra-esque aliens there from the Tom Baker episode.
Yes. Was that Tom Baker? I thought that was the first Doctor.
No, that was definitely Tom Baker's era. It was not Genesis of the Daleks, it was the other one. Oh, shoot. No, I'm going to have trouble remembering. It was the second Tom Baker Big Dalek episode. Anyway, they were used in that episode, and I distinctly remember us having a mutual friend call them the horrible Cleopatra knockoffs. So that's kind of hilarious that they
the Movellans.
Yes, there we go, the Movellans. Bless those cheap.
Oh, yep, Cleopatra. Destiny of the Daleks.
There it is. So, I think the Series 10 actually had a lot of awesome build-up for me, and it's very hard for me to find a season that hit it out of the ballpark like series 10 did.
Right.
I completely agree. Season 10 was one of the best start to finish seasons that Doctor Who has had in a very long time.
Absolutely.
I will say they had one thing that bothered me, and it's in the next episode, because this is one of those things that is really big right now, and so they just had to use it. But it looks like this wasn't even a Stephen Moffat episode. Emojis.
Oh yes.
The emoji bots, or the
Oh
Vardies.
yeah, the cringe bots.
Cringe bots.
Actually, I thought they were used to good effect, though. I hate the emoji craze a lot, but I thought it was used very effectively and very well. It wasn't overdone.
Yes, I just hated the fact that they just had to use emojis.
You know, I thought it, you know, like all good sci-fi, it was a great reflection on us as a society and how like emojis can like, okay, what happens if the emojis are controlling us instead of us controlling the emojis? You know, I thought that was an absolutely brilliant, I guess, I don't know if you'd want to call it a parody, a farce, or something like that, but I thought it was a very great self-reflection on, you know, the whole emoji craze and how the emojis can kill us in the end.
That's a real, you know, that makes me think of it a little bit differently. That's a really good point.
See, this is what I'm here for. I'm not just here to be the token hilarious artist. I'm also here.
We are all different people. We all have differing ideas and opinions, but they're not static. They're not static opinions. We can be swayed.
Absolutely. So, moving on to Thin Ice, I actually thought this was a really well done episode, and I think one of my favorite parts about this entire episode has to be the fact that they kept Bill Potts' race in as an integral part of the storyline. The fact that she was black was written in as, I mean, obviously it didn't center around her being black, but the fact that they kept Victorian England very realistic instead of a whitewashed fantasy.
Yes.
Like you know, not to get on my soapbox here by any means.
Oh no, take the stand.
That's been one of my biggest issues so far with most modern sci-fi, and that's the fact that it's so freaking whitewashed. I mean, you know, Gene Roddenberry didn't write the cosmos to be filled with white guys and white dudes looking for a easy lay on the Orion galaxy. No. I mean, Gene Roddenberry was the innovator for saying anybody can get out there and see the stars and be in the galaxy, and that's real sci-fi. You know, this whitewashed fantasy that a lot of people have, that's not sci-fi. That is utopia. Sci-fi is everybody.
Yeah, and even using the word utopia, because that wouldn't be a utopia for everybody, a utopia for a hopefully small group of people.
Yeah, well, I using utopia like selectively in the fact that it is these people's utopia that is filled with, you know, just white men and white people and no diversity whatsoever, versus the actual world of sci-fi, which is diversity and it is inclusion, and they are looking past money and sex and age and gender and what people identify as and who they are. You know, that just look past all of that and get to the real roots of what sci-fi is. You know, I think that's really what this season brought me to was, you know, this is real sci-fi. This is real sci-fi fantasy, almost space opera.
I thought it was funny that they were selling the poop as fuel.
Oh yeah.
That was kind of an odd plot point, but
actually, I will say that Doctor Who is one of my favorite shows for having monsters not always be monsters. Because in this case, you know, there's, you know, a monster and it's pulling people through the ice, but come to find out it's a creature that's enslaved and is, you know, just letting people profit off of it basically. And so instead of just saving the humans, which the Doctor is, you know, sworn protector of the Earth, he frees the creature.
And I thought that was a very good twist, and showing that, you know, not everything is black and white, good and evil. There's a little bit of that gray area in there because, yeah, the creature was eating people, but it was chained up and kind of being forced to find its own food that way.
Yes.
I think that this season, more than any other season I can think of, really exploited the fact that the Doctor is not really a traditionally good man. The
Right.
Doctor, there was so many casualties this past season, and I think that was really exploited in the fact that, you know, the Doctor's not trying to just save everybody. The Doctor's trying to save as many people as he can, but he realizes that he can't save everybody.
Right. I'm going to take us into our next episode.
Please.
Because it's one of my favorite episodes. So James, knock knock.
Who's there?
Doctor
Who?
Exactly. That's the only knock knock joke I could think of. I apologize. It's so punny and it's appropriate, and my daughter loves it. So this one is about Bill and some students needing a place to live. It starts off with something incredibly normal and relatable. They want a cheap place, and this weird, creepy guy has got a cheap place for them.
Might I also add onto this that David Suchet, who plays the caretaker, I'm actually very work in Agatha Christie's Poirot. And after I found out that he was going to be in this season, I texted my friend in Germany and said, "Oh my goodness, David Suchet is going to be in Doctor Who."
I had no idea who this guy is, but he did the part really well because he was super creepy.
But like, he wasn't creepy until the end. And I think that was like freaking fantastic character development, is that we kind of knew that he was the bad guy, but we wanted to tell ourselves that he couldn't be the bad guy.
Right.
We were looking for something else.
Because I have found a roommate through Craigslist and gotten very lucky as to not have gotten murdered, this episode just completely resonated with me because I'm like, man, if I would have saw that on Craigslist, I probably would have gone to it too, but are they going to get killed? I think they're going to get killed.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was still very, very well done. And this was an episode that I did cry at because at the end, when it's revealed that it's not his daughter, but it's his mother.
His mother.
That is the wooden person. Like, I just bawled because that hurt. That was a very touching scene. It was heartbreaking.
It was, and it was strange and unusual for them to be absorbed into the walls and then realizing that it's actually wood.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there was a Bowie reference in this one too, by the way, Scott.
Yes, I'm trying to find a list of all of the Bowie references throughout Series 10. But yes, they were in the basement and they found, I can't remember if it was a news clipping or an actual record of David Bowie's. Okay. For David Bowie's album Heroes. And there's several Bowie references sprinkled throughout Series 10. And hopefully I'll be able to find what some more of those were here shortly.
And this was not too long after Bowie had died, wasn't it? Because the first episode was April 2017.
So it would have been a little over a year, but it would have been filmed in 2016, which is right after Bowie's death.
Before we continue on to the next episode, I wanted to bring up the fact that there was an overlying MacGuffin through most of this season, and that was the mysterious vault.
What do you mean by MacGuffin? I don't think I've heard this term before.
So, MacGuffin was a term that was coined by Alf, and it's actually used a lot in mystery movies. But really what it is it is the unobtainable object that people are trying to go after, but it doesn't drive the story. So, for example, if you guys are familiar with Avatar, the unobtainium would be the MacGuffin. So the thing that they're trying to get after is this giant load of precious metal that is beneath the sacred tree, but that wasn't what was driving the story. What was driving the story was the fact that he was connecting with the aliens and realizing that the humans were invading and the humans were the ones that were destroying Like, if that sort of vaguely explains what a MacGuffin really is, does that make sense?
It
Does that make
does.
sense? Okay. So, in some way, the vault kind of turned into that unobtainable object where we were all going, okay, why is this vault here? What is the point of the vault? What is driving the Doctor to stay and protect the vault? You know, it was mentioned mostly at the beginning and the ends of some episodes, but it really wasn't revealed until at least I think it was the 3-part episode of the monks, the 3-part monk episode. Really, that's when the vault opened.
Right. And not to toot his horn or anything, but I think Scott had it pegged that Missy was in there like 3 episodes after we saw like the introduction of the vault. I'm fairly positive it was him that was like, nope,
Yeah,
that's where
I
Missy is.
totally called that.
You know, I think I realized Missy was in there when there was a moment when the Doctor was talking to the vault or whatever was inside of the vault, and he was asking for help, and someone was playing a piano inside the vault. And he asked whomever it was for help, and they played like a sad, mournful tune. And then he said, yeah, well, young kids will probably die. And then they're played a happy, chipper, like whatever tune. And like, okay, that's probably Missy. I mean, she would never miss out on the death of young people ever. Ever.
Young, old, doesn't really matter.
So what were your guys' thoughts on the use of the vault? Like, do you think it was a effective enough storyline, effective enough object used in this season?
I think it was. I think that it definitely kept my interest. And even though Scott had thought that he had it pegged 3 episodes in, it still gave me enough doubt that, you know, maybe it wasn't Missy.
That makes sense.
So another Bowie reference, I want to go back a couple of episodes here in Smile with the emoji bots. The Doctor says, "I'm happy, hope you're happy too," which is a line from David Bowie's Ashes to Ashes.
Scott was up on all of these Bowie references.
Yeah,
he had them.
was catching
like
him left and
world's best
right.
Where's Waldo?
For those of you who don't know, I am a massive David Bowie fan, and...
Are you really? I had no idea.
Yes.
We had to ban it in the house for a little while because he was playing Bowie so much.
It's true.
So let's see here. Moving on to looking at the next episode before the 3-part monks episode, Oxygen, the mysterious spacesuits that come alive.
This is the one where the Doctor goes blind, isn't it?
This is the one where the Doctor goes blind.
I thought that was fantastic. I thought it was a great plot point too, because that's something that you haven't really seen of the Doctor too much, is a permanent or semi-permanent injury like that.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Well, I thought that, going back to what I was saying earlier about all good sci-fi, this was a great reflection on us as a capitalistic society. And the idea of using the spacesuits, like, they're not measured in, like, how long you have left, like, minutes-wise, but rather they find out that you can measure how long you have in the spacesuit via how many steps you take.
Yes.
And how much oxygen it will burn, because this suit is supplying your oxygen. And then when it runs out, you either pay or you get, quote, shut off.
I think the order was, if I'm reading it correctly, to deactivate organic components, which sounds all fancy until you realize that, you know, they're killing you.
But they don't really kill you. They shut you off. But really, I mean, they can restart you. But those people that got kind of crispy and kind of crunchy there after a while of being in the suits, I don't think you can really turn that back on.
Not easily, or
no.
Without some sort of terror involved.
Or lots of Febreze, because they probably smell.
Yeah. Gonna need some industrial strength Febreze for those guys.
Is there that much decomposition, though, in space with no oxygen?
Well, I mean, it looked like some of them were getting pretty rotted up. But
I think some of them had taken off their helmets, didn't they?
Well, there was that force field that's generated as a helmet.
Right.
And so, like, if you're thinking about it, these are like they are exposed, unprotected bodies that are going out into the vacuum of space. And for any of you space nerds out there, will probably know what that means. But instantly, without your helmet on, the water in your skin starts to bubble and boil, and basically every ounce of moisture you have in your body instantly boils to the surface and freezes, but also evaporates at the same time. So really, I mean, they're goners. Any of those bodies that went out into space without the helmet on, they're all dead.
Yeah.
And it's not likely they're coming back, because that's, I mean, within the vacuum of space, that's not pleasant. And I doubt those suits were protecting the bodies regardless. They were just using the bodies as a way to get around.
Do you remember how he basically saves the day, which I thought was fantastic?
I do recall, actually. He contacts I guess, or somehow makes contact with the computer that is running all of the suits, and he explains to them that people who are alive will make them a lot more money than people who are being held hostage.
It's because he wired the survivors' life signs to the station so that if they die, it explodes.
Oh yeah, that's right. And doesn't it? He convinces the suits at one point in time of the company that they'll make a lot of money either way, right?
Yep.
So yeah, I'd forgotten about that. I'd forgotten about the fact he rigged the station to blow.
I thought that was fantastic.
Oh, it's classic Doctor.
He gave them a choice. He didn't take away their choice and their free will, but he did say, you know what? Choice A seems to be a whole lot better for you than it is, than choice B. So, I mean, you could choose what you want, but this is going to cost you more.
Absolutely. So, now on to an amazing astonishment in my, I guess, whole surprise of the Doctor Who universe, a 3-part Doctor Who episode.
That's the closest we will get to old school story arcs.
Absolutely. Sadly. So I have this theory that I've been hanging to about the 3-part episode that I would like to share with both of you. Ooh. And it is something that I read online, which unfortunately did not turn out to be true, but there was a theory that the monks were actually the Cybermen. And the reasoning that was brought about here was that when the Cybermen were first introduced, or when they were first being designed in concept, they were being designed as aliens that could disguise themselves as something else, and could only reveal themselves at the point of, between either each other or when they're getting ready to attack or something like that. And so there was a long-running theory that the monks were the Cybermen because it was established at the end of the first episode that Bill and the Doctor were inside of a computer simulation.
That's interesting.
And so they thought, okay, the Cybermen, it has to be the Cybermen, thinking that this was leading up to the finale, which had already been revealed that the Mondosian Cybermen were going to be a part of.
That's a really good point. I didn't see that theory at all. Scott?
No, I didn't see anything on that theory either. And granted, we were busy doing a lot of wedding planning, so I didn't have time to look into the nooks and crannies of the Doctor Who fandom, but
it was getting down to the wire at that point.
So what did you guys think about the idea of the Doctor going blind?
I thought it was very interesting because, like you guys mentioned earlier, that hasn't really happened. He hasn't sustained anything like that. But at which point did he regain his sight and start pretending? Didn't that happen?
There was a moment where the Doctor pulled out, it looked like actually a Time Lord Walkman, but really the technology was that he was borrowing time from one of his future incarnations in order to regain his eyesight temporarily. And he had mentioned that one of his future incarnations will be suffering the aftermath of him borrowing from their time. So we can now expect that one of the future Doctors will be either temporarily or permanently disabled to some extent.
Oh man, timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the Doctor should have been the Valyard by now as well, so who knows if that'll actually happen.
Well, I'm very happy that you brought up the Valeyard, because the Valeyard was brought up in Twice Upon a Time, which I thought was actually pretty cool that they're acknowledging finally the Colin Baker era. Finally. 20 years later. Finally.
He's the most interesting doctor I've ever met. I've also only met one doctor.
I'm right there with you.
I'm telling you, he was a cantankerous old man, and I loved him.
Yes. He was absolutely wonderful. I also had the pleasure. I tell you what, I would give anything to go back and meet him again, because he was absolutely wonderful.
Scott met him while wearing his rainbow jacket, and he looks at Scott and goes, I don't think I've ever met anybody that quite filled it out the way it's supposed to. It was the best thing
No
ever.
filter, and I loved it.
And I was lucky enough to be able to ask him a question during the Q&A, and I know we're getting off topic just a tiny bit, but I'm very proud of this. I haven't seen much of the Sixth Doctor era, but I have seen the episode where he tries to kill Perry, and both him and Nicola Bryant were there. And so I asked him, I said, so was it difficult, shooting that scene where you're having to pretend to choke your friend and colleague? And he goes, no, I didn't find it difficult at all. I found it quite fun.
So let's move on to, I don't know, let's think.
Let's do this next damn episode.
Let's do this next damn episode. Ice Warriors episode. My God.
Wait. I do have one more thing to say about the Monks episode.
Oh, okay.
There were actually 2 David Bowie references in the Monk 3-parter.
I'm going to start doing shots now.
First, you're going to be drunk by the end of this. Nardol's headphones in the pyramid have the Black Star logo on them. Black Star being David Bowie's last official album, studio album. And in the scene where the people are watching the Doctor's message on all the TVs, that is actually the exact same location used in the No Plan music video, which was the first song released after his death.
I also have to mention that we haven't actually talked about the Monk episodes very much. What about when Bill shoots the Doctor?
Oh, yes. That was...
Did anybody remember that? Because I didn't until I just read it.
Yeah, I had forgotten about that, but that was a fantastic scene because she wanted to save the world. Didn't know that it was all a ploy by the Doctor. Shoots him. He uses a little bit of that regeneration energy to make you think he's going to regenerate, and then doesn't.
I wonder what percentage of a Doctor he used. Like 16th?
Down the line, we're going to have to get Deep Roy to be a Doctor here eventually.
I mean, like, maybe one of his reincarnations just won't have a foot.
I think I would like to see a very diverse cast with a Doctor. I think that could be very nice.
We're going to get an amputee?
A black lesbian. Get Pearl Mackie to be the Doctor.
Yes.
Black lesbian Doctor in a wheelchair.
Yes.
Boom. All inclusive.
That's not all inclusive. There are many more things to include.
That is true. But this has been an incredibly diverse series.
Yes.
Very much so. So, are we good? Are we ready to move on to Ice Warriors? I'm really excited about Ice Warriors, guys. I am so excited about Ice Warriors.
Are you?
I'm very excited. Can you not hear it in my voice? I'm so excited about Ice Warriors.
Ice Warriors.
I'm so excited. I guess you could say it's something ice pun. Never mind.
Something ice pun.
Something ice
You
pun.
really kept your cool there, James.
Thank you. I tried my best.
I'm sorry for that pun. That was bad. You're right, I'm not.
I'm going to stab you.
Okay, James.
Yes.
I want you to use 5 words to describe the Empress of Mars episode, which is the Ice Warriors one.
Okay.
5 words.
5 words. I'm going to use one of my cuss words now.
Okay, that's fine.
Fuck. That's one of them.
That's a big one.
Fuck.
Wait, is that 2 Fs?
Okay, yep, you caught me. So that was 2 of them.
Well, this is now rated R, not PG-13.
Sorry.
Damn it. Okay, there's the 3rd. Ice-tastic and Let me see. I gotta find a good word to use for my last word.
Wait, how many words have you used? I've only heard 2.
I've used fuck twice. Now, okay, that makes it 3 times. I said damn it and ice-tastic.
Ice-tastic does sound like a very good word, but it is only
Ice-tastic.
1.
I also think that this episode could qualify as being wunderbar.
Wunderbar?
Wunderbar.
Going full German now.
Full
Full
German.
German. Like the Queen of England, full German.
Es war sehr gut, yeah.
Yeah. This episode was very good, yeah. You know what, I love the Ice Warriors. You know, I'm a classic Doctor Who fan. I love the Daleks. I love the Cybermen. I love the classic staples. But I tell you what, I think the Ice Warriors, hands down, are some of the best written aliens I think that Doctor Who has ever had. I've never seen a bad Ice Warriors episode. I think that they're always very well thought out.
What about Cold War?
I'm going to pretend it doesn't exist.
I'm gonna say there are some great names in this episode too. There's Araxa. There's Captain Catchlove, which is my favorite because I'm a 12-year-old girl at heart.
That's the Ice Warrior that makes friends with the English soldiers, right?
Yes, I think so. And then there's also Godsaker. That's a fantastic name.
They're very crunchy words.
Yes. Like ice.
Yes. See, I was thinking like crunchy, like Aztec, like ancient warrior type words. But yes, like ice. Yes, exactly that.
Now, something that we missed in the last episode, the last episode of the Monk trilogy, that was the first time we saw that Missy was in the vault.
Oh, yes.
And she actually expresses some remorse at people that she's murdered. Because in this episode, we finally see Missy out of the vault at the very end.
Yes, and she's driving the TARDIS.
Which terrifies and excites
everybody. I mean, even though I'm sitting down, I am giving her a standing ovation.
She's one of my favorite characters. I shouldn't relate to her as much as I do.
But you do. We all do. I think we're all a little bit of Missy at heart. At least I am. I feel like I am.
Now, help me out here, James. Why were the British Army on Mars? Because they saw, NASA found the words "God Save the Queen" buried under the ice cap. But in 1881, why were soldiers from Victoria, Britain there?
I think, and now I may be mixing up my stories a little bit, but if my memory serves me correctly, I believe these soldiers had found the Ice Warrior ship because they were, I believe it was an expedition to one of the polar caps, and they found the Ice Warrior ship, and they claimed it in the name of Queen Victoria. And when they went into the ship, the autopilot started and flew the ship to Mars.
Did you notice who Queen Victoria looked like in that episode? In the portrait?
Did it look like Jenna Coleman?
No, it was Pauline Collins who played Queen Victoria in Tooth and Claw.
Oh,
that's tasty.
It's a little bit of a throwback there.
I am actually looking it up. Captain Catchlove was actually the British soldier that rescued the ice warrior named Friday. That's what it was.
Oh, very cool. So yes, there we go. Now we're getting some closure on our ice warrior name. Absolutely. You know what? I'm going to say it again for reinforcement. I love the Ice Warriors, and I'm so glad that we get to see the Ice Warrior hives.
Yes, that was so cool.
Because previous to this, the only Ice Warrior hive experience that at least I've had, maybe Scott experience, was the audio adventure with the Fifth Doctor and Perry. And I cannot for the life of me remember what it's called. My goodness, I should be more prepared than I am, but I'm not.
I think I may have listened to that one. I haven't listened to many of the audio adventures.
Anyway, it was basically the Doctor and Perry, the Fifth Doctor and Perry, go to Mars, and they they find a futuristic spaceship going into the Ice Warrior hives, which accidentally activates them. And that is a moment where we see the Doctor interacting with the Ice Warriors out of mutual respect. And I think that's what I love about the Ice Warriors, is they're not bad villains. They're not the bad guys. They are warriors, and they fully respect another warrior. And the Doctor can reason with them and level with them. And they're not bad. They're not like the Daleks where they're just going to blow you out of the water. They will very reasonably sit down and talk to you.
How do you compare them against the Sontarans?
I would say the Sontarans are playing for cheap tricks. The Sontarans are about conquest, whereas the Ice Warriors are about mutual respect and honor.
That's a good point.
So I feel like, that is one of the big things that I love about just interactions with the Ice Warriors. Because even in the Third Doctor, they were introduced back in Patrick Troughton's era, but the Third Doctor era, we got to see more of the higher ranking officers of the Ice Warrior tribes and the White Ice Warrior hives. And this is where we actually get to see the highest ranking member of the Ice Warrior clans. By the way, that audio adventure is called Red Dawn.
Okay.
I'll have to give that one a listen.
And it features Nicola Bryant and Peter Davison.
So what did you guys think of the Eaters of Light?
I was actually just going to go on to that. I thought it was interesting because it didn't start off with, oh, there's something wrong. We need to go save it. It was the Doctor and Bill simply discussing, what was it, the 9th Legion of the Imperial Roman Army?
It was the 9th Legion, yes, which just seemed to have disappeared.
And they were disagreeing about it. So they're like, okay, well, to settle this argument, we're going to do what any normal people do and use my time machine. Because I would do that.
I think this is a great way to make a roundabout to some of our beginning conversations about using gay characters as plot devices. I loved, even though it was only a passing moment, where Bill and the 9th Legion are sitting in the cave, and he's subtly flirting with her, and she gets the point, and she kind of, tells him, well, I'm not really into men, I'm into women. And the guy's like, oh, okay, that's fine. And she's like, wait, what? Like, what just happened? He's like, yeah, that's fine. Like, I mean, Bill over here, he likes men. I'm bisexual. He likes men.
That was good.
Women, but we still like him. It's like, wait, what? Did they
because
really?
You don't expect it back in 2nd century.
Well, but the thing is, I mean, in ancient Roman times and Greek times, that was pretty much the norm.
This was in Scotland.
Well, yeah, but it was with the Romans.
That's true. That's true.
So, in the interest of seeing that we are hitting the hour-and-a-half mark here, let us push forward to the last 2-part episodes of the season, World Enough and Time, and The Doctor Falls. What do you guys think?
I thought the way that they had the spaceship set up next to a black hole, and the further you go down, the faster time passes, or was that correct? Or the slower time passes?
Yes, that is correct. The closer to the black hole, the slower the time.
Yes. Time moves much faster on the decks closer to the black hole.
And I thought that was a really cool way to see the evolution of the Cybermen from, the Mondasian Cybermen, the original with the cloth mask over their head, to the more modern day Cybermen. And seeing Bill get a giant hole shot in her chest was quite the shock.
But I think that was a great segue into being upgraded, I guess, so to speak.
Yes.
And, I think this draws, and I'm sure, Scott, you'd probably be able to relate, this drew a lot of parallels for me to Spare Parts.
I actually just listened to that not that long ago, and yes, very much so.
And, kind of how the Cybermen didn't evolve out of just nowhere. They evolved out of necessity, and they evolved out of an idea of making people durable for an environment that was very toxic, an environment that was very rugged, very abrasive. and creating these ways to survive in a world that is increasingly unsurvivable.
Right.
And for me, I think there's definitely a dual genesis here where I fully believe that both Spare Parts and World Enough in Time and the Dr. Falls, they're both canon. They're both canon genesis of the Cybermen. I think they both are fantastic ways to explain the beginnings of a very terrifying creature.
And that's kind of the thing with the audio adventures, though, because they're semi-canon, because they were mentioned in The Night of the Doctor, which is canon, but it makes you wonder how much of the audio adventures that the BBC are considering canon. But I do think that was, the Spare Parts, was a fantastic Genesis story, and I think that World Enough in Time was also a very good Genesis for them as well.
Michelle, what do you think? I mean, you've had experience with the Cybermen. What do you think about this Genesis story? Does it kind of satisfy any questions, or does it leave you with more questions?
It does leave me with more questions, but it might be that mom brain coming out that completely forgot. Something that I can respect with our good old friend Razor, who ends up being the master. Did he know that Bill was a companion of the Doctor and he played a super long game, or did the opportunity just arise that this person, who she's very apparent, not from that time, not from that ship, shows up and he takes her under his wing and makes her the first of the new Cybermen.
I think that is a very valid point. I have a feeling that the Master generally keeps tabs on where the Doctor is and who the Doctor's with most of the time.
I want to think that he was playing a super long game.
Absolutely.
The longest of games. And just wanted to make that moment sweeter when he revealed that the Doctor's friend and compatriot is now one that he goes against.
And I think these 2 episodes, they actually did something that almost 54 years of Doctor Who has never done. And that is established a timeline for the Master. And that has confirmed that Missy is the next regeneration after John Sims' Master.
Yes.
And, I mean, for the past 54 years, we've never had any solid confirmation on what reincarnation of the Master we're looking at. We just thought, okay, it's the Master, he's got a new face. Where does he fit on the timeline? We don't know.
Nobody knows. Just like, he could be anywhere, since River has a completely different timeline than the Doctor. So could the Master.
Mm-hmm. And these 2 episodes also do another thing for me, and that is the Doctor can now officially experience villains or his arch enemies in an order that is not linear, like to his own timeline. Because for the past 50 years, we've just seen the Doctor fighting alongside the Cybermen and the Daleks and the Centaurans, but they are progressing through time parallel to each other. Why, if they both have time travel technology, why are they experiencing each other parallel to each other's timelines? Why can't the Doctor, in his younger incarnations, fight Centaurans or Cybermen that are 10,000 years ahead of where he met them before? Why does he have to meet them parallel?
Right.
Because it's easier to record it that way.
Yeah. But now we have...
And we're looking at that long game.
Well, aside from, Genesis the Daleks, which was the very beginning of the Daleks, this was the first time that anything like this has ever happened since that moment.
Speaking of things that you don't see very often in Doctor Who, if we go all the way back up to the episode The Pilot, where Bill's love interest, Heather, is gone, taken by aliens and then turned into something different. At the end of The Doctor Falls, we see Heather again, and she basically saves Bill and turns her into whatever the hell she is.
Which is never explained.
No, it's not.
Which, I don't know, and on top of the fact that they actually used in this season, like, they brought the Pope into this season for some reason, which I thought was freaking hilarious. Like, just seeing the Pope putter around, it's like, wait, what? They legitimately brought the Pope into this? Okay.
Was it the actual Pope?
No. It
okay.
was, yeah. But
I mean, we have a pope right now that is super cool who would probably be on Doctor Who if asked.
I could see that easily. And, I legitimately thought that it was Pope Francis for a moment, but it was a very good impersonator.
Can we call him Millennial Pope?
Millennial Pope. I would very much like that. So we have Millennial Pope in the 3-part Monk episode. So now we come to the final transition of our podcast.
Yes, we're getting back to the Genesis.
Yes.
No, we haven't talked about the Doctor's death yet.
No, we haven't.
Oh, this is right. We have not.
So
Missy betrays herself, by the way.
Well, it doesn't really surprise me, but I love the fact that we see a redemption in the Master, but we are quickly pulled back into the fact that the Master's not good. The Master's not supposed to be good. And that was a good reminder.
Had some humanity. That incarnation of the Master had some humanity, just as not all incarnations of the Doctor have been the most kind. Because you have the War Doctor who destroyed, planets in vengeance.
Absolutely. And, does this mean that Missy will not be returning? Does this mean that Michelle Gomez is officially retiring from? Or does this mean we will have more of Missy to see in the future?
I have an inkling that she's not coming back, but it's not like a Clara type thing. Like, if I see Missy again, I'm going to be thrilled because she's one of my top 3 actors, characters in Doctor Who. I just hate to see her go. She was such a fun evil to watch.
Oh, yes. And what I think that Missy really deserves, what I think Gomez really deserves, is an on-screen regeneration.
Yes!
I agree. Have
there been any on-screen Master regenerations?
There
kind of.
In Tom Baker's era, there was kind of an on-screen regeneration, but that was the Master absorbing another body. So that wasn't really a regeneration.
Yeah.
But I think that Michelle Gomez regenerating in front of Jodie Whittaker or with Jodie Whittaker present, I think that would give good solidarity to where the Master lies. And, I think that would quickly establish a very intimate relationship between the Master and the new Doctor.
So do you think we're going to get another male Master with the female Doctor, with the whole yin and yang of things?
I am all about the black lesbian in a wheelchair Master.
Yes. Wait, can we get Samuel L. Jackson for that?
Oh my goodness, yes.
Samuel L. Jackson. Trans as well.
The doctor, does he look like a bitch?
What does he?
I've had it with these motherfucking Daleks on this motherfucking TARDIS. So he's turning into Bill Cosby now, never mind.
No, we don't want that. I mean, that is pretty evil, but...
Yes. The worst of all the evil.
We need Samuel L. Jackson as a trans, lesbian, deaf amputee in a wheelchair. Is that where we're going? Have I done too many? I think I've went too far.
I think that's too many.
Too many. How many is too many?
3.
Oh gosh, I went way too far.
It's okay. I understand.
There's no going back though.
It's okay. We accept it.
I'm still petitioning for Samuel L. Jackson as the Master.
I think that would be a good choice.
So what did we think of the Doctor's sacrifice in The Doctor Falls?
I think it was well deserved.
Yeah, I didn't see that going anywhere else.
I think that was a very excellent lead-in domino effect to the Christmas episode.
Yes, as he attempts to stop his regeneration, he goes outside the TARDIS. It's snowing out. He kind of sticks his hands down into the ground and, no, I'm not regenerating right now. And then it just ends.
He's a stubborn old man, just like he started out with those angry eyebrows.
And then, I think you're forgetting one of the most parts of that episode, is the fact that after he says, no, I'm not regenerating, he says, or something is heard from afar. Words are heard. Yeah, thank you. That was the word I was looking for. Words are heard from afar, and you hear, who's there? Oh, it's David Bradley as the first Doctor?
Yes, back to the beginning again.
So what did we think about Twice Upon a Time?
I thought that the first Doctor was a lot cheekier in his New Who introduction than he was in his actual episodes, because obviously different writers. But him and Bill's interactions with Peter Capaldi's Doctor's interjections were fantastic. You can't say that. You just can't say that.
You know, major props to David Bradley for taking on the role and filling the shoes of William Hartnell and really getting his characterization down to a T. I thought he played the first Doctor phenomenally.
And I'd like to bring something up here about, I've seen complaints about David Bradley, I guess not David Bradley himself, but specifically the first Doctor writing. And I would just like to mention that this was a completely different era of time. This was the 1960s. Things were different. I mean, writing was completely different than it is now. We have made a lot of strides and a lot of innovations in writing for women, in writing for people in general, in keeping things realistic. And seeing that side by side comparison of very modern, enlightened writing versus what writing was like back in the 1960s, it was astonishing. And I think it pulled some people out of it because they're like, okay, they're trying to be kitschy. No, they're not
No.
trying to be kitschy. They're legitimately writing the first Doctor as he was. They're legitimately writing the 12th Doctor as he is now. And it's that moment of, okay, if you could go back and meet yourself from 10 years ago, what would you say to yourself? You'd probably slap yourself. And this was exactly that moment.
It was glorious. That's the word that I keep thinking of. It was glorious.
That's a very, very good word to describe that as.
I know there were kind of mixed reactions to the episode. Some people loved it, some people hated it. I'm of the camp that really loved the episode. I watched it twice within a 12-hour period, and I don't know. I loved seeing the first Doctor back. I love seeing the interactions between the 12th Doctor and the first Doctor and the first Doctor and Bill. One thing I will say that I was not impressed with was the CGI in this episode of the glass people.
Goodness.
I thought that harkened back to the campiness of the Ninth Doctor CGI, or even further back, maybe to the Seventh Doctor CGI. It was hard to watch. It was bad at that point.
I have a question for you guys.
Okay. I'm
because
ready.
Scott pretty apparently liked the episode. I liked the episode. We haven't gotten to James's quite yet, but do you think that fans are more likely to enjoy it if they also enjoy the classic Who and they, know some of the, features of the first Doctor, or if they're just new Whovians and they've only seen the new episodes, they've only experienced that they're not gonna quite get as much out of it as some of the other people who really enjoy the classic Who?
I don't know, Scott, you want to take this one?
I think that it was a great all-around episode for both new Who fans and classic Who fans. There weren't a whole lot of references back to the first Doctor besides, the moment of his regeneration and coming in from the 10th planet episode and it going from the 4x3 to the 16x9. There wasn't a whole lot of harking back to his era. So I think overall it would be a good episode for new Whovians to get a little bit of a taste of the classic series without being overindulged in it.
I think I would agree with you, Scott. I think that there's a lot of you don't need a lot of preemptive watching to understand the first Doctor's era. I think brilliantly they portrayed enough of the real William Hartnell and faded that in perfectly with David Bradley's interpretation. I think there's a lot of really great transitions. I think people might be a little bit confused about who Ben and Polly are and where they fit into the situation.
Right.
The fact that somehow Ben got a lot taller than the Doctor and a lot taller than Polly when really he was shorter than the two of them.
Yeah, I do agree on that. I guess there was a little bit of Ben and Polly. See, we came into the episode, the first watch through, and we had actually missed that part because we were a few minutes late getting in. And so that didn't really stick in my head, and I was very tired when I watched it the second time. But Yeah, there was a little bit of Ben and Polly there, and I guess he did mention Polly as tidying up the TARDIS a couple of times.
Yes. He did mention when Bill comes in something about how it's about time because, that way she can, get to cleaning, which could have been taken two very different ways. One in a very chauvinistic way, the women do the cleaning, and a very racial way because of that time as well.
I completely this whole testimonial idea, I think that it was good in theory but bad in practice. I think that's really all I can say to that measure, because we didn't see enough of them or know enough about them to really form a solid opinion, I guess. Really, in the end, I think that Mark Gatiss's character of the great great uncle of Lethbridge Stewart is the true shining gem or of this episode. I think, you know what, when I first saw him, that was immediately what I thought is, he's the Brigadier. Why is he the Brigadier? And for the longest time, that's what I kept telling myself, was every time I'd see him on screen, why is he the Brigadier? Or did they bring him back? Why did they bring him back? And
it was a
then,
perfect reveal.
It
exactly.
really was.
And I think that the fact that they revealed that he was, in a way, the Brigadier, but he was obviously a distant relative, I think that's brilliant. I think that ties it in very, very neatly. And I think it's a very subliminal way for the future doctors to latch on to Alistair Gordon Lethbridge Stewart.
And his name was Archibald Hamish Lethbridge Stewart, Mark Gatiss's character.
I liked in this episode how the first Doctor seems like he's senile. I like a lot of the moments where it seems like the first Doctor is almost going senile, where at first he's like, wait, you're me, but I'm supposed to get younger, aren't I? And then for the rest of the episode, he treats the 12th Doctor like a child. Like whenever they mention the alcohol, have you gotten into this? I think you've gotten into this.
Well, and what's funny is, not funny, but the William Hartnell, the guy that played the first Doctor, actually had hardening of the arteries in the brain, and so he was actually getting very senile towards
You're
the end
right,
of his
that's not
run
funny.
as the first Doctor. And I think some of that was added in because that was part of his character. They couldn't do do-overs back in the first couple of seasons of Doctor Who because they were on such a shoestring budget with such time constraints that a lot of those things were left in, and they've kind of become known as Billy Fluffs.
Oh gosh, I feel so bad now. I forgot all about that.
It's just part of the charm of the first Doctor.
His senility?
Yes.
Yes.
Now, if you can look past the hard, crusty exterior, the first Doctor was actually a very charming Doctor, and actually very loving and caring and compassionate. But a lot of people tend to hit the unearthly child and like, I don't want to watch this. He's a grumpy old man. Bear through it, because really, he becomes a very heartwarming character, a very touching character, and a very loving and caring person. And I think that we get to see those parallels with Peter Capaldi's Doctor and William Hartnell's Doctor, or I guess it would be David Bradley as the first Doctor. And I think that's one of the more brilliant parts of this episode, is that we get to skip past all the mean grumpiness of the first Doctor, and we get to see the loving and caring attitude, the courage that he expresses when he's choosing whether or not he wants to regenerate for the first time, or whether the Doctor wants to regenerate for the last time.
I thought that was a cool little addition too, saying that he was afraid of regeneration. It kind of really gave him that more, I say down to earth, even though he's an alien, but that more relatable human attribute that, we're all in a way afraid of our own death, and regeneration is basically a death.
It's very tragic, but I think that's what made one of the brilliant things about this episode just even more brilliant, is discussing change and realizing that change is not always fun, wanted, but it has to happen.
Yes, and actually you can see the change throughout the entire episode with the contrast of the first Doctor and the 12th Doctor because of how they both treat Bill. And we mentioned this just a little bit before we started recording, but I can't get over the fact that, Bill calls the 12th Doctor an arse, and then the first Doctor comes out and threatens her with a smacked bottom if he hears language like that again. And then 12 is like, let's just forget this ever happened. This did not happen. So you can see how differently they really treat the companions as well.
Mm-hmm. Easily. And, I think that you can see that dynamic between Bill and the Doctor in that moment, because I think that she was actually egging him on because she knew that he was super embarrassed and she wanted to exploit that. I mean, in a fun way, of course.
And I love that line that, let's just not talk about this and forget this. Is like, I want to talk about this for hours.
For hours. And she was actually talking about his, not wanting to regenerate and everything, but that's kind of the way we felt. No, let's continue with this. Let's do this a little bit longer because this is entertaining. You don't often see the Doctor in any of his regenerations look quite as uncomfortable as he did when he saw himself misbehaving.
Mm-hmm. Easily. I completely agree. And, those are classic moments that make this past Christmas episode so wonderful. But I think the time has come, my friends, that we must talk about letting the Doctor go.
Oh, no. I will say that this isn't... I'm not as sad as I have been at previous Doctors. He was a good Doctor. He did what he was supposed to.
Absolutely. I think it was a very good send-off. I did get misty-eyed. I'm not proud enough to admit that. I definitely got misty-eyed. I am sad to see my Doctor go, but I am
He really was your Doctor.
He really was, and I've
Peter
never...
Capaldi.
Yes, Grumpy Cat Paldy. I've never bonded, and Scott can actually attest to this. I've never bonded with a modern Doctor until Peter Capaldi. I've never found that niche until him. And
to be fair, all of the other Doctors were always the ones that girls fantasized over, and the companions fantasized over, minus Donna Noble, bless her. But really, all of the other ones, even Amy, who eventually had a husband, that was still her Doctor, and she probably would have traded him for Rory in a heartbeat.
I could see that.
And Capaldi was fresh in a way that he wasn't Clara's love. He wasn't her one and only. And Bill, Bill was completely off the table too for her own personal reasons.
Mm-hmm. And it was said right from the beginning with Clara in Deep Breath. I'm not your boyfriend, Clara.
Nice. Yeah, I forgot all about that.
Right from the beginning.
I don't think I'm a hugging person.
Yep. And he put that barrier between him and her pretty much immediately, and I think that's why she had such a problem connecting with him as the Doctor than she did with Matt Smith.
What I would like to do, I would like to read the Doctor's last speech, and then we can discuss that a little bit, and then we'll discuss the final scene of the Christmas special.
Well, you may not. I'm kidding, just go ahead.
So, the Doctor's final speech. Oh, there it is, silly old universe. The more I save it, the more it needs saving. It's a treadmill. And there's the TARDIS noise, the vorp vorp.
Vorp vorp.
Yes, I know they'll get it all wrong without me. Vorp vorp. Well, I suppose one more lifetime won't kill anyone. Well, except me. You wait a moment, Doctor. Let's get it right. I've got a few things to say to you. Basic stuff first. Never be cruel, never be cowardly, and never ever eat pears. Remember, hate is always foolish, and love is always wise. Always try to be nice, and never fail to be kind. Oh, and you mustn't tell anyone your name. No one would understand it anyway, except children. Children can hear it, sometimes. If their hearts are in the right place and the stars are too, children can hear your name. But nobody else ever. Laugh hard, run fast, be kind. Doctor, I let you go.
Gave me chills.
It did. It gave me chills reading it.
And the new Doctor, I'm going to say the new Doctor's line because refreshingly, we have a female Doctor now. Brilliant.
Brilliant! I'm so excited. Jodie Whittaker is so... Actually, I binge-watched the entirety of Broadchurch in order... Actually, you know what? I wouldn't even call it binge-watch because I got sucked into that show like it was some sort of vortex of doom.
It is. It's one of those shows that once you start watching, you have a hard time stopping.
I'm going to say it. I had no idea who she was until Scott told me. And I didn't know what kind of actress she was. And I was a little bit terrified that they were going to change Doctor Who in a bad way because I, as a human being, am terrified of change. But having plenty of time to think about it, I'm happy that my daughter will have someone to look up to, that it's not just, oh, that man's the Doctor. It's, I'm going to dress up as the Doctor, which she could have anyways, but little girls need heroes too, and there aren't near enough women heroes out there that aren't overly sexualized and prized for all the wrong reasons.
This is definitely the year for positive female role. Wonder Woman, we had I believe the NASA movie came out this year or last year?
I don't
Hidden Figures?
remember, but I know which one you're talking about, and it is fantastic.
But, you know, we have Wonder Woman, the female Doctor, we have positive female role models for a new generation, both little boys and little girls to look up to, little girls more than ever. But, you know, I could just brush all of these stupid jockey fanboys off into the wind that say that Jodie Whittaker is going to bring nothing but doom and gloom to Doctor Who. I think that is completely asinine because she embodies the Doctor, and just the few short seconds that we got of her in that role, that taste.
Yes.
I want more. I want more of the Doctor, and she just instantly fit in. And there was no question about it.
For those of you listening to this, if you haven't seen Jodie Whittaker in anything, please, I beg you, watch Broadchurch. She is a phenomenal actress, and I think that the show is going to be in very good hands with not only her as the Doctor, but Chris Chibnall taking over as the showrunner. He did a phenomenal job with Broadchurch. It's one of the greatest shows I've watched in the last several years, and it kept me enthralled throughout. Now, what did we think of the Doctor's last speech?
I thought it was very appropriate, and then the pears thing, that cracks me up. That brings me back to Matt Smith's beginning when he's like, nope, I can't remember what food it was, but he's like, nope, I don't like this. I just
Apples,
found that out.
Apples. That's right. Bacon. Bacon's evil. I believe Peter Capaldi did mention at least one other time in the season that he doesn't like pears, that pears are evil.
Yes. What did you think of the children line, that children can hear his name sometimes?
I think that easily reflects, like, okay, I'm going to say for me, you know, Doctor Who has pulled me out of a great many dark holes in my life. You know, it's been a salvation to me far many times that I really want to even recount out loud. And for me, that meant so much to me, because he's not just acknowledging that, you know, the Doctor's this fictional entity. He is acknowledging that the Doctor's the hero that we need, and the Doctor's the hero that he always will be, and she always will be. And I think it's a subtle reminder that in the end, he really was a good man.
Yeah.
And he knows what he's doing.
I have something to interject. I found something out about the pears, because I just looked it up. Apparently, this has several different references, not only to Tennant's Doctor, when he transformed into the human named John Smith. In a deleted scene, the Doctor told Martha to never let me eat pears because he just hated them. And then
Right.
in the 2-part episode, the Doctor did eat a pear, which was a sign that he was not himself. Also, in Hellbent, season 9 episode, he told Clara to never eat pears, and this was right before he lost all of his memories of Clara.
So there
and
we
then
go.
So
we
Pears
also
is
have
the main
one
goal.
more, actually. I apologize. In one of the Doctor Who books called Human Nature.
Oh,
And-
okay. Yeah,
the 7th
Human
Doctor
Nature.
story that was then turned into a 10th Doctor episode. And that's actually going back to that when he, and I forget the name of the device, the little pocket watch that he put himself into when he lost his
Right.
memories and became human.
Anyway, yeah, something like that.
Mhm.
I don't remember the name of it.
Yeah, it was a 2-parter, Human Nature and Family of Blood. But we do have about 5 minutes to wrap up here.
Let's do like a quick fire best worst memory of Capaldi's era.
Scott, go.
Oh boy. Okay, so my best Peter Capaldi moment. Oh, that's a hard one because there were so many. I think the entirety of Heaven Sent would be my best Peter Capaldi moment. I thought his acting in that was phenomenal. It was an episode with pretty much just him, and it was enthralling, and I've seen it several times. Worst Peter Capaldi moment, I think, was probably the first time he put on those Sonic sunglasses.
All right, Michelle.
This is definitely difficult because I'm torn between also Heaven Sent and then his entire interaction with Ashildr. I'm probably going to have to go with Heaven Sent as well because it's literally just him trying to fight with himself. And then the worst, I'm sorry, I'm going to get hate from this and I don't care. The worst was when he arrived in on that tank. It was cool, but it didn't feel like the Doctor. Again, it felt being cool just to be cool, so it made you less cool.
Makes sense. Okay, I guess that means it's my turn now, right?
It is your turn.
Okay. Best moment, everything. Least favorite moment, nothing. No, okay, that's very
a
cheap.
cop
I'm so
out.
sorry.
That is a cop
That's a
out.
cop out. Okay. Favorite moment would have to be okay. Gotta make me actually think now. Let's see here. Let's do least favorite moment, anything with Clara. I especially don't like the last scene with Face the Raven when he's babbling to Clara. I do not like that scene. I do not like his interactions with Clara. You can tell that they hate each other. Both Capaldi and Jenna Coleman did not like each other. It was just not good for me. That whole serious interaction between the two of them, not well written, and it did not have the dynamic that they were trying to write for it. I think favorite scene or favorite moments, favorite bit of Capaldi's era, hands down, has to be the return of Dr. Mysterio when he is specifically talking to the boy through him growing up and talking to the little boy about being different and the fact that this little boy has a alien gemstone in him that is making him fly, and the doctor has to come and talk him down and say, hey, so we all get these normal emotions, but you have to learn to control them by yourself. You have to be the one to make sure that you don't fly off the handle because nobody can know that you're different. And just seeing that heart-to-heart moment with this grumpy old alien and this little boy who's struggling to be normal is just brilliant to me. I think that would be it.
I think those are two good moments.
So, okay, well, there we go. That is probably a wrap on
That is
I think so.
almost
definitely going to wrap it up.
3 years of mad fans with a podcast of not being around, but here we go.
All right, James, we'll see you in another 3 years.
Yeah, sounds good. And hey, message to all you listeners out there. If you enjoyed this podcast and you want to hear more from us, message us. Let us know. We miss you guys. We miss our fans, but we can't do it without you guys. So if you want to hear more, let us know. We're here. We're all ears.
If you're listening on Podcast Garden, find us on Facebook, Mad Fans with a Podcast. If you're listening here on YouTube, then just leave a comment down below. Let us know what you think. And yeah, it's been a long time, but I'm glad to have this wonderful Christmas episode to share with all of you and our thoughts on the past couple of seasons. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey. When did we start Mad Fans with a Podcast? It's been
We started
a long time
Technically,
ago.
I started today.
This is Michelle's first episode.
This is my debut. Hi, my name is Michelle, and I am Scott's now wife. When Mad Fans with a Podcast started, I did not know Scott at all.
Which is completely absurd to think of that. But I know. No, not in a bad way, but like that we've been doing Mad Fans with a Podcast for this long, that, you know, you guys have met and are married, and that Mad Fans preceded that marriage.
And Doctor Who was part of us meeting.
There we go. Doctor Who brings lives together, and Doctor Who brings friends together. And I can certainly say, without Doctor Who, Scott nor Michelle and I would be friends more than likely. Probably just see each other at conventions and awkwardly wave.
Yeah, we would have never met each
that.
other through, you know, without Doctor Who. Well, Michelle and I would have known each other, but, you know, I would have never met James, and I wouldn't have met such a wonderful community of people.
I don't know. The Doctor Who thing was definitely a high point in me talking to you online.
That is very true. 2013 is the furthest back I'm seeing for Mad Fans of the Podcast. So
Holy.
approximately 5 years.
Almost 5 years.
At least 5 years.
Well, with a almost 3-year Colin Baker hiatus.
Yes. Well, why not?
Change, my dear, and not a moment too soon. There you go.
Guys,
That's
Colin
nice.
Thank you so much for listening. You all have a wonderful, wonderful year. I cannot wait for Jodie Whittaker's first season to see what all's coming with that. But
and we'll be back.
Maybe we'll do another one after the first episode to bring in
There we go.
We very well may be back.
Call it a deal.
Let's put the show on trial.
Order.
All right.
All right, guys. Have a good evening, or whenever you're listening to this, have a good day. We will see you sometime in the future.
Mad Fans with a Podcast. Here we are. Well, I just figured we could do a little bit of Carol Channing and just wing it.
Welcome to Mad Fans with a Podcast.
With a podcast.
Oh, that's probably going to go in the blooper reel at the end.
Lesbians.
All right, I got to do it too. Lesbians.
Good. Try lesbian. So James, knock.
Who's there? Sorry. Here we go. Okay.
Do we want to try that again?
Yeah, try me again. Yes, try it again.
I can't remember.
Oh, I wish I could remember that.
Apparently, they erased it from our memories too.
Yeah, some sort of Men in Black shit there. Oh, is that the first swear of the podcast?
You know what?
Golly gosh. Was it the actual Pope?
Well, we're all allowed to be different, Michelle. Gosh. Oh. I've had it with these motherfucking Daleks on this motherfucking top.